What's going on, everyone? Hope you had a great Easter. Celebrate the resurrected Jesus Christ. I want to bring a short video to you today on Revelation chapter 11. That's a very popular passage. It's a hard one, possibly the hardest passage, one of them in the Bible, with the two witnesses. But I specifically want to look at Revelation 11:8. Before we get going, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel down below, and it helps the channel out and gets it out there a little bit more. Revelation 11:8. Here's what it says. Speaking of the two witnesses, and their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So what is this great city? Well, it's the city where our Lord was crucified. What city is that? Okay, that's Jerusalem. So these two witnesses are in Jerusalem. Their bodies lie dead in this city. On what basis can we connect spiritually Jerusalem to Sodom and Jerusalem to Egypt? And I think it would be on the basis that they've gone apostate and they've gone against the Lord. If you want to think about some of the themes that should come to mind, I think the very first thing that should come to mind is the Exodus theme, because out of Egypt and out of Sodom you have a picture of an Exodus. The most famous Exodus story comes from Egypt, and everything is modeled off of that. I think that's a huge, huge part of the Bible and something that we need to see. The way I view it is that the New Testament is this second Exodus coming out of this 40-year period, 30 to 70, and this second Exodus is coming out of Jerusalem. And I think we begin to see that in the book of Acts, how they come out of Jerusalem, and it gets even more clear as Jesus Christ is presented as the true and the better Moses. So he's a second Moses leading a better Exodus. And this pattern follows because in the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24, Jesus says, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, or when you see the abomination of desolation, Luke 21 says, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. So what he's saying is, look, when you guys see the Roman armies coming, get out of town. Don't go back to the city, flee to the mountains, do all of that. Don't go back on your housetop or your rooftop. See, we don't hang out on top of our housetops, but they did back then. This should let us know this has a first century context, and Jesus says in this generation all these things are going to take place. So we can make the connections to Jerusalem being the place that's going to be destroyed, and I think the destruction picture is picked up very well in the thought of Sodom. So Sodom is another Exodus. It's a little bit of a different type of Exodus with Lot, but think about some of the principles that are there. God sends two angels to come to Sodom and tell Lot, hey, we got to get out of the city. And what's really cool is, just like in Egypt, Lot then has bread and wine, and he essentially has the communion elements in Sodom before he exits the next day. So you get the same night Passover theme, you get the communion elements, and we're getting out of there. It's the exact same thought. And these two angels, in my opinion, represent a picture of the two witnesses who come to Sodom and say, Lot, we got to get out of the city. So what happens? The righteous flee the city, those who trust the Lord. Remember when Abraham walked it down, he said, Lord, will you destroy it for 50 righteous or for 45 righteous? Abram walks that all the way down, and eventually the city is going to be destroyed, but God gets those who are righteous out of there first. So you can see the connections of Jerusalem going apostate and an Exodus theme connected to Lot and Sodom as well. Let me read you Isaiah chapter 1 verse 9. Now this is addressed to God's people who are in covenant with him, and it says this: unless the Lord of hosts had left us a very small remnant, we would have become like Sodom, we would have been made like Gomorrah. So the spiritual connections are this: unbelieving Egypt, unbelieving Sodom, unbelieving Jerusalem. The meek inherit the earth. We got to get out of the city. So this makes perfect sense to say that their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city, which is spiritually called Egypt and Sodom, where our Lord was crucified. You can see all of the connections that take place there around the Exodus theme. And I don't think you can put this any other time than the first century. If you keep reading in Matthew chapter 24, when you get to verse 36, we're told that it's going to be just like the days of Noah. Well, the days of Noah, that's another Exodus story, and you exit on a boat. People mess the rapture thought up all the time, and they say the righteous are taken off the earth and the wicked are left. Well, that's the exact opposite of the days of Noah. Noah was another Exodus picture, and the Exodus picture is simple. Those who listen to God and trust in Him inherit the earth. What happens in the days of Noah? Noah and the righteous get on the boat, the wicked get wiped out, and God essentially starts over. Noah gets off the boat, he plants a vineyard, then you get the story about him getting drunk. It's the exact same concept. There's an exodus that's there, and God is saying, essentially, I'm going to do the exact same thing to Jerusalem. And that's what He does. So I want to bring in one other thought, and this is kind of off topic, but kind of with it. Daniel 12:7 says that at the time of the tribulation, the power of the holy people are going to be shattered. Okay? If you take this and you say Revelation 11:8 is talking about Jerusalem, you grant that, but you put it in our future. By the time you connect that to Revelation 12:7, the only holy people that you've got left are the believing Christians. Okay? So if you want to place that into our future, you're not talking about the old covenant structure and the old covenant that God had with Israel anymore, being the holy people and their time being shattered, which, by the way, Daniel 9:24 says that 70 weeks are determined for your people and your city. That's the Jews in Jerusalem, which it all makes sense with that goes together as well because it's speaking about the same thing. You're going to have to say, if this is in our future, then the only people who are left to be shattered, who are considered the holy people, are the Christians. And I don't see how that fits into the pre-trib dispensational rapture doctrine at all. The only sense that this makes is to put it in the first century, and the city where our Lord was crucified is Jerusalem, and you've got an Exodus picture out of there when the Roman army comes. Luke 21:20. When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, know that its desolation is near. This is the city that the two witnesses, who are the two witnesses? I have absolutely no idea. I don't know. I've gone back and forth on this so many times because you can say it's the law and the prophets like a lot of people do. Somebody asked me the other day, who are the two witnesses? I hate it when I have to say I don't know. I'm still studying. But in this case, I don't know. I'm still studying. You can say it's the law and the prophets, fine. You want to say it's two literal people, that's fine, but then you've got to answer the question, well, who are they? And that's as hard as answering the man of lawlessness question, which I've seen 1,000 different answers to. Either way you go, I'm 100% in my belief. Now, just because I believe something 100%, that doesn't mean that I'm right, so go study it and check it out. But I believe that these two witnesses come to Jerusalem in the first century, whether it's symbolic, meaning law and prophets, or whether it's two literal witnesses, and their dead bodies lie in the street of the great city spiritually, Jerusalem, which is called Sodom and Egypt. I mean, Jerusalem's already been called Sodom once in Isaiah 1:9. You get the same thoughts, where our Lord was crucified. Don't think there's any doubt about which city this is speaking of, and I think the context makes a lot of sense, especially when you put it with Revelation chapter 1, and it says things which must shortly take place. Hope that helps you. God bless you. Like and subscribe down below, and we'll see you soon.